All right, good afternoon. We're going to get started here. All right, so thank you everybody for coming out today. My name's Caitlin Palmer, and I'm a special advisor to Secretary Teresa Miller. On behalf of the Departments of Human Services and Education, I welcome you to the Pennsylvania Parent Pathways Summit. The Parent Pathways Initiative stems from the Secretary's interest in Misericordia University's Women's with Children's program, which focuses on providing supports to single moms as they pursue their bachelor's degrees. I was tasked, along with my colleagues from DHS and Education, to research this program and explore ways to create a scalable model in communities across Pennsylvania. The models will aim to remove barriers to post-secondary education for single parents and their children as they obtain the skills needed for fulfilling family-sustaining careers. In fall of last year, the departments released a request for information to see what types of programs currently exist that support a similar goal. We received over 60 responses from various sectors that provide opportunities to support single parents in enrolling in and completing their education from a variety of post-secondary degrees or training programs. Through the RFI response and continued stakeholder engagement, we defined the Parent Pathways Initiative as a multi-generational, whole family approach to provide wraparound support to low-income single parents pursuing a college degree or post-secondary training program. As you may know, the governor proposed $5 million in the 1920 budget to implement up to 7 models statewide. While we're still in the information gathering stages of this initiative and continue to develop details for implementation funding, we plan to invest in community-driven, holistic models that address both the needs of the parent and child together while leveraging community partnerships and existing resources. What sets the Parent Pathways Initiative apart from our other employment training programs are 3 main components. The first is post-secondary education, which could include anything from a 4-year degree, 2-year community college, technical or trade school, or certificate or apprenticeship program. The second component focuses on 2 generational supports, which include addressing education, social, and health needs of parents and children together in order to improve positive outcomes for the family. The third component is housing supports. Connections to safe, affordable housing is vital to healthy childhood development and the success of parent in both school and work. Over the next 2 days, we will hear from local, state, and national experts on the 3 components of Parent Pathways. We are excited to have attendees today from a variety of sectors that are interested in this initiative. We encourage you to connect with others from your community that share the similar goals. The input we receive from this summit will inform us as we develop our implementation plan and funding distribution, pending the passage of the final budget. At the end of the day tomorrow, we will have an opportunity to gather by regions and discuss next steps. Regions are grouped based on the geographical locations of the participants here and will be discussed further tomorrow. That's what the numbers are on the back of your name tags, but you don't have to worry about that today. So before I turn it over to Secretary Miller and Secretary Rivera to provide some opening remarks, I just want to turn to the agenda for today to give you a little bit of an overview of what we will be discussing. So following opening remarks from Secretary Miller and Secretary Rivera, who will be talking about parent pathways for the Department of Human Services and the Department of Education, as well as some other department priorities, we will have a keynote presentation from Marjorie Sims from Ascend at the Aspen Institute, which should set the stage in terms of what 2-generational programming is, what the national landscape is, and what is happening in other states. Following the keynote presentation, we will have a break with light snacks provided out in the lobby. Following the break, we will have 2 program presentations from Misericordia University here in Pennsylvania and the Family Scholar House, which is located in Louisville, Kentucky. We have the director of both of those programs as well as former graduates from the program as well here with us. We'll allow time for questions and answers after that, so you can talk with the program participants and see what questions you have and ask them. After the second break, we will be doing a collective impact presentation, which will be presented by the United Way of Lancaster County. And then we will break into table topic discussions. On everybody's table, you should see a list of table topics and who will be facilitating those, as well as a list of what table numbers those will be held at. And I can get into that a little bit more later. We'll have a slide up on the screen in terms of where to go. We had a couple additions there as well. Okay, just a few housekeeping items. There's a reminder that this event is being live streamed, and so folks that are tuned into the live stream, there will be a pause between each presentation so that we don't get all the feedback from people walking back and forth and transitioning. And then as a reminder, we have snacks provided today and a light continental breakfast provided tomorrow. Additionally, I know some folks had some trouble parking getting in today. There are multiple training facilities and conference rooms on site, and tomorrow, since we start earlier, we won't have the same problem, so you'll be able to get a closer spot. Additionally, free Wi-Fi, it's under Patton Guest. There's no password. And bathrooms are located right outside the door and around the corner. All right, so I will at this time turn it over to Secretary Teresa Miller from the Department of Human Services.
Thank you, Caitlin, and I would be remiss if I didn't say a huge thank you to Caitlin and to Tara Williams on my team, who did just an amazing amount of work to make today possible. So thank you all for all of your work. And I want to thank the Department of Education, because this has been such a great partnership with them. So good afternoon. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be in this room today and see all of you and just see how many people are interested in doing what we can to really expand post-secondary education opportunities for low-income single parents. This is exciting. In my role, I am really fortunate that I have the opportunity to meet a number of the people that we serve every day. And I've learned a ton from them over the last year and a half. When I sat down with Gloria, one of our SNAP recipients, SNAP is essentially food stamps, I listened to her story, and I couldn't help but think that I have taken so much in my life for granted. I have lived a very white, privileged life. I had amazing parents who told me that I could do anything I wanted to do, who helped me pay for college, and who at the end of the day I knew were always going to be there for me, whatever I needed. Gloria is 28 years old. She lost her husband, and she's now raising a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old entirely on her own. She's been taking out loans to pay for community college classes so she can make a better life for herself and her family. But between rent and food, education, transportation, and childcare costs, I have no idea how Gloria is ever going to get ahead. And I've met a lot of women like Gloria over the last year or so. Moms who would like nothing more than to create a better life for themselves and their children and to no longer need public assistance. One of my goals in this role, is to give a voice to those in our society who often live in the shadows. DHS serves millions of these individuals across all of our programs. But one program area that I found myself really gravitating to and particularly interested in is our TANF program, or our Temporary Assistance to Needy Families. With all the talk about welfare reform, I was interested to learn more about this population. And what I found is that this population is primarily children and, in many cases, their moms. In many cases, women of color. And what I noticed is that while I've met and I meet with a lot of advocacy groups on a regular basis who advocate on behalf of a lot of the individuals we serve, this is one population that just doesn't seem to have a voice. And it's these women who've really inspired our department to overhaul our employment and training programs and focus on developing educational pathways that lead to family-sustaining jobs. But with this population in particular, supporting their educational goals means supporting the entire family and helping them address the many barriers that so many single parents in poverty face. This two-generational approach is gaining momentum across the country. And we're looking for ways to expand this approach across the Commonwealth. Over the last several months, I've had the opportunity, and in many cases with Secretary Rivera, to visit a few programs around Pennsylvania that are doing this in their communities. And one such program, which was really the inspiration, as Caitlin mentioned, the inspiration for the Parent Pathways initiative is Misericordia University's Women with Children program. Misericordia's program is one of only a handful of programs around the country that empower economically disadvantaged single mothers to pursue higher education and provide them whatever supports they need for them to be successful in that program. I know that you're all going to hear more about this program later today, so I don't want to be a spoiler, but I am going to tell you why this program has just a really special place in my heart. I had an opportunity to meet the first graduate of Misericordia University's Women with Children program, Judy, during my first visit to Misericordia. She was the first in 4 generations to graduate from high school. Take a minute to wrap your head around that. I still can't wrap my head around that. The only reason she did was because she had serious health issues, 25 surgeries, including an amputation below the knee of her left leg. And she had a tutor during her extensive hospital stays. After she left a violent marriage, she decided that she needed to get an education. Because she'd graduated from high school, she was able to get into Misericordia's program. She was 23 years old, and her daughter was 7 when she entered the program. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in 2002 and is an employment facilitator with an Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and her daughter, now 25, or this year maybe 26, is an environmental engineer and staff sergeant in the U.S. Air Force. This program doesn't just change lives, it ends the intergenerational cycle of poverty. And that's why we're all here today. As you may know, Governor Wolf proposed $5 million for the 1920 budget to support Parent Pathways by investing in startup implementation costs for up to 7 post-secondary support partnerships so they can establish similar models around the Commonwealth to build on this success for years to come, and to give more people like Judy that opportunity. Parent Pathways model awardees will have the flexibility to develop a community-specific plan that considers the makeup of their community, the needs of potential families to be served, and resources available to meet the needs of the specific community and families served. The models that we end up with may not look exactly like Misericordia's model, and we don't expect them to. What matters most is that they all follow the mission of improving the quality of life and opportunities for single-parent families. Awardees may include, but are not limited to, community-based organizations or post-secondary education institutions. Our goal is to support models that open doors for single-parent families, be it through post-secondary education like 4 or 2-year degrees, technical or vocational training, or apprenticeships or certificate programs. Misericordia's program has had a transformational impact on the families that it has touched, and I cannot wait, with the help of everyone in this room, to figure out how we can expand that reach and do more around Pennsylvania to help single-parent families. Before I turn the podium over to my friend, Secretary Rivera, I just want to share one more initiative that we're working on, also in partnership with the Department of Education and a number of other agencies within the Commonwealth. And that is our resource and referral tool. If you haven't heard me talk about this yet, I just want to take a minute to describe it. This is one of our ways of really examining how we can better connect people to services that address a variety of their needs. Too often, we hear today that an individual was referred to a service and that was it. There was no follow-up to check to see if that service was a good fit, to see what progress is being made, or even guarantee that someone actually obtained that service. Service providers in different fields may see many of the same clients, but they don't have the relationships or the connections to build those partnerships that are necessary for truly coordinated care. The Wolf administration is working with our community partners to develop a statewide online resource and referral tool that will allow for communication between service providers, allow providers to better collaborate, provide up-to-date and informed recommendations for services and programs, track whether someone received a service to which they were referred, and then monitor progress. Through increased coordination across social service and healthcare, we're investing in long-term outcomes and helping clients make sure that they're meeting their needs. This will help the people we serve to improve their health outcomes and pursue education and training opportunities. Thank you again for joining us today and being a part of this really exciting initiative. I know everyone in this room is as passionate as we are at the department about trying to figure out how we increase post-secondary opportunities for single-parent families. So thank you so much for investing your time over the next few days. And I'm really excited to hear from all the amazing speakers that we have lined up today. So again, thank you for being here, and I now have the privilege of turning it over to my friend, Secretary Rivera.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, good afternoon. I have to take a moment first, and before I share my brief comments, really acknowledge the work of Secretary Miller, her team, and just the collaboration and coordination that has been undertaken, not only in the Department of Human Services and the Department of Education, but just by creating this synergy. More and more of our partner agencies have been coming together to really do a better job of holistically serving our communities. You may have heard the governor share, our tagline, our motto, jobs that pay, schools that teach, and a government that works. But because of these partnerships, we've been able to really take his vision and his edict to us to another level. We no longer are saying our students, your students, my students, but we're using the collective our as an example to show that we can all work together to not only serve students in our traditional education system and in traditional human service systems, but work together to serve students holistically from the moment they are born as they work through their system and ultimately work to gain gainful employment. I'm excited to be here today. As I was looking through our notes and just reading, 81% of children whose parents do not have a high school degree live in low-income families. 62% of children whose parents have a high school degree but no college education live in low-income families. 26% of children whose parents have some college or more live in low-income families. This was interesting because not only do you start to tag an experience that we have been that we've been visiting and engaging in anecdotally, but this really hit home when you look at the numbers. And not only in terms of my role as Secretary of Ed, but I kind of went through many of the facts, and I was like, I started to check off boxes, kind of saying, thinking to myself, yeah, been there, done that. See, I was one of those stats. I was the son of a single mother. I'm proud to, acknowledge, the fact that I'm one of the few members of my family to graduate from high school, first member of my family to graduate from college. But what I'm most proud of the fact is that I wasn't the last, nor the only. I'm proud when I think back, and I remember the time when I was a kid, and my mother at the time was attending classes at Community College of Philadelphia. And she was a single mother. So often she'd drag me along with her and set me up in the back of the classroom. Now I'm seeing all these great YouTube videos where the professors are walking around with the baby in their front pouch. Nobody ever did that to me. Hey, I was a big kid, so you're probably afraid. When I walked in the room, he's like, I'm not putting that kid on my strap. But I remember specifically my mother setting me up in the cubicle in the back of the classroom while, this big, bright, fluorescent, light-driven classroom, and sat me in the back in a cubicle. And I had my coloring books, and I had blocks, and I had trucks. But most importantly, what I remember the most, she'd also sit me down with a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich on a hoagie roll that she bought from the lunch truck in, right outside of the Community College Philadelphia. See, in Philadelphia, we adopted lunch trucks before they were in vogue. I mean, now, they're like fine cuisine. In Philly, they were not fine cuisine. Matter of fact, the kids on campus used to call them the roach coaches. So I said, Mom, go buy me a sandwich at the roach coach. And she looked at me and said, she'd say, will you stop calling it that? It's the lunch truck. But I remember those days. I remember spending the time where they're walking in and out of the classroom, engaging, with her, and being exposed in that environment. You see, I remember because my mother showed me what it meant to work hard and try to better herself. Now, My mother didn't finish her 2-year degree until after I graduated from college. But that experience, those opportunities helped mold us both into what we are today, because she finished her 2-year degree and continued to work in the medical field. Now, I still love to visit Roach Coaches, or traveling cuisine, as whatever you want to call it now. And I still, quite often, as I approach them, especially in my old stomping grounds of Philadelphia, I think back, on those times with my parent and my family, just experiencing new experiences. But I also know that by partnering with our partners in the Department of Human Services, by partnering with other agencies outside of the Department of Ed, we can break those systemic barriers that were created that forced a parent like my mother to do anything she needed to do to keep her kid quiet in the back of the classroom. Having to take classes and drop classes and add classes, having to take a year or 2 years or 3 years off because at times she didn't know how she was going to make ends meet, or had to worry about employment, had to worry about childcare, had to worry about health services and other related systems and services. So when Teresa invited me to visit the Misericordia program and to hear about other programs like that, it was probably one of the most heartening experiences just to see how a system came together, breaking down barriers and focusing on the needs of the family, putting services in place so that when a parent needed access to high-quality childcare, they could access that support system. When they needed health-related access, they can find themselves with a high-quality system of support. And just as importantly, create a community amongst themselves that both formally and informally met their needs. So when I was sharing with my mother the experience and the story of visiting the Misericordia program and other programs like that, she looked at me and she said, one of those kids will probably grow up to be the Secretary of Education one day. And I got to look back at her and say, you know what? Those kids are going to grow up to be even better than the Secretary of Education one day. And that's what all of you are doing here today. We're going to work together to create conditions for learning, create conditions for living, create conditions for growth, to ensure that families can focus on earning and working towards family wage sustaining jobs. Kids can have access to the environments and the opportunities and the resources they need to be better each and every day and to grow to be healthy and successful and better educated than their parents had. And together we're going to continue to chip away and break that system of poverty, the cycle of poverty. We're going to create conditions that ensure, and this is where you come in, you're going to create conditions to ensure past our expiration date, agencies like PDE and DHS continue to work together in service of our most vulnerable, underrepresented communities. And you can tell them we started this momentum, and we expect that we're going to continue serving families and communities how they need it, where they need it. So I thank you for being here today, but remind you this is only step one of engaging and starting this movement. When you leave here today, when you leave here tomorrow, and after you've networked and you've heard more about the investments DHS and the Department of Ed and the governor are making, challenge yourselves, challenge us, and challenge everyone else around us to do more, to do better, and provide our kids and families the resources they need and deserve to be the next generation workforce. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to hearing the rest of our stories.
All right. Thank you, Secretary Rivera and Secretary Miller.